If we're talking about the iPhone SE, then we need to get one thing straight first, because it looks exactly like an iPhone 5S, and if you see one on the street, there is practically no way that you could tell it's the new 4-inch phone, besides the addition of 2 letters on the back. But looks aside, almost everything else that you can't see has changed, and these things make the iPhone SE worth talking about. If you are currently an iPhone 6 or 6S user like myself, then using an iPhone SE is strange. It feels like a step back because your muscle memory gets really used to and loves a bigger screen with more space. Or if you've been using a 4-inch device like the iPhone 5 for a while, the iPhone SE feels no different. The 1136 by 640 display looks as crisp as ever, with the same 326 pixels per inch that we've seen on 4 to 4.7 inch iPhones for the last couple generations. It's not the Retina HD display, just the standard version, but it's still a nice screen, and I don't have any problem with it, even if it is almost 4 years old. You know how they say, out with the old and in with the new? Well, that was Apple's model for the rest of the iPhone SE. The rear camera mirrors the iPhone 6S, which means for those of you playing along at home, is capable of capturing 12 megapixel still images and recording video in 4K. It's an iPhone, and it looks great, and I don't think you'll have any complaints, although the camera on the new Galaxy S7 is actually quite impressive, but that's a story for another day. Plus, live photos seem to be the gold standard for Apple as of late because you can shoot those on the iPhone SE too. So the back camera is great, but the front camera is disappointing. Unlike the 5 megapixel counterpart in the iPhone 6S, the iPhone SE is still rocking, quote unquote, that 1.2 megapixel shooter on the front. It's weird, right? This phone matches the iPhone 6S in almost every other aspect, but it's like someone just forgot to upgrade the camera that most of us will be using to take non-stop selfies, or maybe that's just me. Inside, the iPhone SE houses a speedy A9 chip with an emphasis on the word speedy. I have yet to experience a slowdown or lag of any kind, and with iOS 9.3 on board by default alongside one of the fastest mobile processors ever, the iPhone SE feels like a flagship phone. Seriously, the specs are nice, but what's even nicer is the battery life. I glanced at the spec sheet on Apple.com and saw that the battery life looked to be above average and better than the projected battery life on an iPhone 6 or 6S. It has only surpassed my expectations, which is so cool to be talking about good battery life and an iPhone in the same sentence. I've been keeping track of it, and I usually end the day with between 5 to 15% of my battery life yet, which really isn't that bad for a 4-inch phone. I mentioned earlier that the iPhone SE felt like a flagship device, but this iPhone is not, well, at least to our knowledge, the new phone for 2016. I mean, it is a new iPhone, but it's not the new iPhone for this year, because that'll probably launch in September by the name of iPhone 7. You see, almost everything about the iPhone SE makes it feel like the frontrunner for Apple this year, but it's not, and that's partly what makes this device so interesting. It's a flash from the past that's also the latest and greatest. Sure, this device has its quirks like every other phone. It's got that 1.2 megapixel FaceTime camera, first generation Touch ID, and no barometer. But all of that really doesn't matter for this iPhone, because it's not the flagship, and it's not priced like one either. At $399, this iPhone is the cheapest iPhone ever. Usually when we think about a cheap phone, it's like an older model with outdated specs. But that's not the case this time, because the iPhone SE isn't just the cheapest iPhone ever. It's one of the best phones I've ever used, and it's gonna be in my pocket for a while. Or at least until September.